Are you interested in setting up your own homebody monastic schedule or just the idea of a spiritual schedule in general? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to be sharing behind the scenes of how I create my homebody monasticism. Hi, welcome to Gently Being. Homebody monasticism is just a way for an individual to create a monastic-like schedule or a spiritual schedule for themselves where they are and in a way that works best for their lives. I'll share down below a link to the first video I made sharing my idea about homebody monasticism and how I sort of came up with my first schedule. But just a brief overview, I am someone who is mostly at home. We have stay-at-home orders where I live, and even if those were lifted, I mostly just work from home as it is. But I wanted to fit in more of my spiritual practices and checking in with myself throughout my day. So I took inspiration from various monastic traditions and also retreat schedules, looked them over, and then sort of came up with an idea for creating my own homebody monasticism. Since we're almost at the start of May, I wanted to update my current schedule. So how I do that is I first make sure that I have these three tools with me. One, a nice cup of tea to help me while I'm thinking over my schedule. Two, I like to use a pad of paper and a pen, but of course, if you want to use any sort of digital app, that will also work. My first step is jotting down all the obligations I have during the day or during the entire week so that I have an idea of how much time I have to set aside for work tasks. And after that, I move on to jotting down how much time I would like to devote to spiritual practices, spiritual time. So this is, either prayer or meditation or walking meditation, some sound healing, looking at tarot cards, Lectio Divina, any sort of spiritual practice that I would like to incorporate in the coming month. I like to jot all that down and get an idea of how much time I would like to spend each day during the month devoted to my more homebody monastic activities. After that, I make sure to jot down just some of the stuff that fits in on the side, tasks that I have to accomplish during the week, but they may not be daily tasks. Once I just sort of brain dump all that down, I then begin to construct the actual homebody monastic schedule. So for myself, I know that I always walk my dog for a morning walk at 7:30. So I always begin my day with a short prayer I like to do when I wake up, or a really short spiritual practice. And then I know the first thing on my schedule is that I walk my dog at 7:30. And then from there on in, I like to create blocks of time. So what this looks like is I devote 40 minutes, 45 minutes, up to an hour to specific blocks of time that are either work related or monastic spiritual practices or exercise. Walking my dog. I know, for instance, that I always walk my dog at least 3 times a day. So I put those in the schedule to start with because I know when those are. And then from there, I fit in the blocks of time that are work, the blocks of time that are spiritual practices, and I move them around and shift them. And I see what my day looks like when I'm starting to shift these blocks of time. I should start by saying that if you know what time you like to wake up and you know what time you go to bed, it's good to, bookend your day with those. And then from there, you're able to shift and move your blocks of time to come up with your monastic schedule. For myself, I really like to make sure that my spiritual practices are scattered throughout the day. And I like to have these brief moments that break up any sort of work that I'm doing. For myself, when I make up blocks of time that are devoted to work, which is all I write down in my schedule, I'll just say work. That can be either work that I'm doing for making videos for Gently Being or things related to that, or also I just also include like housework into those sort of schedules. I like to keep it for myself a little more loose, so I just have any of my obligations I fit under work, and then anything that has to do with spiritual practices, I put under like the Homebody Monasticism or spirituality. And then from there, I just, shift the blocks around because each day can be a little different. So sometimes you may be able to, for instance, go for a walk if you like to go for a walk every day. Maybe usually you'll go at 9 a.m., but it's raining one morning, but you know that it's going to stop raining in the afternoon. Well, you can easily just shift the blocks in your schedule so that you're not missing out on anything. All you have to do is move things around. Some tips for creating your first Homebody monastic schedule. 1, don't take on too much. It's really easy for us to think that we want to have hours upon hours of spiritual practices throughout our day, especially when we hear something like Homebody Monasticism, but just start small with just a few practices that you scatter throughout your day. Idea 2, really think about what times of the day would be the most beneficial for you to have a small break. So for instance, I myself don't have large blocks of time devoted to the spiritual practices. They range from 5 minutes to 25 minutes at the most, because I find that is the best way for me to really fit it in throughout the day. But also sometimes it's just really nourishing to have that 5-minute break that is for some mindful breathing or some silent prayer or any sort of activity that you think would fit. So I find that that works best for myself, but experiment and find what works best for you. Tip number 3, for myself, I have a sort of cutoff day, a cutoff time, which is at 6 p.m. and I just devote that to what I call family time. And that is eating dinner and just, spending time with my honey bunny and my pup at home. And I don't schedule what that time looks like as much. I just have that block that I know is called family time. And it morphs from day to day what that is. I still maintain that block of time, but I don't try to overly schedule it. The next tip is to tell those you live with what you're doing. Let them know you're trying out this schedule for the month. I find it's best to let people who are around you know what's going on, because maybe it will spark their interest to do something similar, or at the very least allows them to respect the time and space that you would like to give to these different practices. Now, while I'm very much a homebody, I am at home, I don't go out very much. If you're someone who has to leave home from work, you can adapt this schedule for your workplace. You may want to think of small breaks if you're able to take during your workday that are, again, it can be 3 minutes for mindful breathing, 5 minutes, a really short prayer that you do throughout your day, even just maybe saying some sort of blessing before you eat your lunch or your breakfast. Try to think creatively with how you'd like to fit your spiritual practices into your day. I find that when I make this schedule and I make my blocks of time, I really tend to keep to it more. I find that my day is more productive because I've recreated it to be more structured. It's important to remember that everybody's life is different and everyone's spiritual practices are different from another's. So you want to find the best schedule for you in the life that you're leading now, and not to put too much pressure on yourself. Again, you could even start as simply as having a small spiritual practice in the morning and then one before you go to bed or one at lunch. Start small and you can grow from there. Once your month is over, be sure to look back on your schedule and see if there's any changes that you'd like to make. For instance, I'm just about to start working on my May schedule because I know there's a few changes that I'd like to make in the way I did the April one. And lastly, if you have a bad day, a bad week, or the schedule falls apart, remember to be gentle with yourself and to forgive yourself, and you can always start again the next week or the next month. I hope this video inspired you to create your own Homebody monastic schedule, or maybe just gave you a little inspiration for how to fit in your spiritual life more during the day. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe below, and hit the bell so you always know when there's a new video. Once again, thank you so much for spending time with Gently Being.